So Bill actually has a long history with actually the founding of our firm, Benchmark, which is Bill bought Kevin Harvey's company, Kevin Harvey's first company that he had started when he was at Rice, and moved Kevin from Houston to the Bay Area. And after that, when Kevin started a second company, Bruce funded it, and Bill went on the board. And so they had a history with Bill prior to Benchmark ever being started. And then after they sold that company, the second company, then they founded Benchmark. And Bill's been basically a mentor advisor to our firm from the very beginning of Benchmark. Well, when Bill gets involved with a startup or an entrepreneur, I mean, the basic thing that he does is he converts an entrepreneur into a CEO, which, sounds, fairly straightforward, but a lot of young people start companies in Silicon Valley, and they have an affinity for the technologies or the products because they've been playing with them since they were 14 or whatever. But most of them don't have an affinity for business, and business has two parts. One, understanding pricing and the business models and revenue collection and the income statement, and the other is leading and growing and scaling that business. And how do you manage a board, and how do you manage a team meeting? And this is something none of these people ever know. A lot of them make it up, but when he's involved, they learn at an accelerated pace. And so the odds, I think of all the companies of ours that he's kind of become an advisor or mentor to, it's like 90%. Like, he has a better slugging percentage than any venture capitalist that I know. I think there's a couple different things. He probably has, this phrase emotional quotient, EQ. He may have the highest that I've ever seen in any human being. Bill can sit down with the most important person in the world, be it like a person in government or Tim Cook or Steve Jobs, and have a very effective interaction. And as you know, he can walk up to the woman that works at the food stand at a Giants game and have an equally passionate conversation where the person on the other side feels like he's listening, feels like he has something to add. And I don't know anyone that has that kind of breadth of scope of ability to interact with other human beings. I was lucky enough that when I joined Benchmark, Bruce, took me aside and said, "Hey, I'd really like to find a company where Bill can work with you." This was early in my venture career. And you learn, you just learn being around him. You learn about the right things to do that I mentioned earlier, but you also learn about how you can influence people and how to treat people respectfully. And one of the reasons he's so effective is he endears trust very quickly from people, whereas a lot of people in different roles might be perceived to have different biases that makes it harder for them to be impactful. But it was a huge impact on me. We worked on a company called Opinions together, which we then did a merger and an IPO. It was fantastic. And the people that were involved in that, are still friends with Bill, and we still talk and get together occasionally. And if you ask those people, who in Silicon Valley's had the biggest influence on your career, there's a good, I'd say 90% chance they all say Bill Campbell. I think there's an argument that he's had a bigger impact on Silicon Valley than anyone else that's been here. If you look at what he's done in the past 15 years, not only has he shepherded Google from its very earliest days to being worth $400 billion and just one of the most spectacular outcomes you could imagine, but he helped his buddy Steve, create what is the biggest turnaround and business success story in the history of the world, as far as I'm concerned. And it sounds like when I say that I'm being apocalyptic or something, but they took a company that was near bankrupt and made it the most valuable company in the world. It's a story that is unprecedented. And from how I perceive, I wasn't there, but how I understand and perceive things, he was Steve's confidant the whole way on the second run. I think he's an incredible listener. I think he's a synthesizer. So he has this innate ability to see there's a bunch of chaos and a bunch of issues and boil it down to one and say, here's what you ought to go work on. And then taking chaos and synthesizing it to a single thing makes it easy to go execute. And I think that process is empowering to these people that he works with. They've got something they want to talk through. He's a great listener, a great synthesizer. I think he helps those people get to decisions faster. That's my best guess. My favorite thing, which other people may tell, is, and you might have to bleep this part, which he in almost every company I've seen him work with, every entrepreneur, there's a point in time where he leans in, and he's famous for saying this, and I'll butcher it, but he goes, "It's not about the money, it's about the money." And the reason that's so memorable to me and impactful to me is back what I said earlier, which is a lot of these entrepreneurs don't think about the fact that entrepreneurship's about business, and it's easy for them to get away from that, or to think it's just about the product or the team or whatever. And it's a very disengaging way of reminding them why we're here, which is to make this thing work from a business perspective. I think that there are very few people in this world where you can say, boy, I am so lucky to have got to spend time with this individual. And the most, one of the most amazing things about Bill is, even though I say that, I know there's 500 other people that would say the exact same thing, maybe 1,000. And it's one thing to impact 10 people or 50 people that you work closely with, but to be able to have the skill to have such influence in these kind of shorter time frame windows and such a broad population, I think really speaks to his impact and the legacy that he's left on Silicon Valley. Hey Bill, congrats on this prestigious award. No one's had a bigger impact on Silicon Valley than you have. Thanks for all you've done for Benchmark and all of our entrepreneurs.